The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Whew, has it been an adventurous couple of weeks? Welcome into the show. We're all back in studio. And if there's time, we're going to have CRN story time of Matt's time in Charlotte, my time at PA on Barbara Motorsports Park last week. And I was told that we didn't get the story time last week, so maybe some tales of Talladega.
Oh, boy.
Meantime, on this week's show, we get to talk tires for Formula E. We're going to talk voting for the Cup Series All-Star race. You know, Michael Andretti's still making plans regarding Formula One, even though he still doesn't have a team. We'll use yet. Racers talking to Congress, U.S. Congress, by the way. Yeah, racers were up there talking to them. Got another name added to Superstar Racing Experience competition. We're going to start with the team-changing car makers for 2023. That's right. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. All that and a whole lot more coming up on this week's edition of the Championship Racing Network, which gets rolling after this.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back in. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, producer John Myers here. All aspects of it. Flagship station 95.1 The Mountain in East Central Alabama, the Mountain app, and CRN Live on YouTube is back. Sorry about the tech problems from last week. I know that was disappointing for some people who have really no real other way to catch it. So, yeah, we apologize. We got a lot of stuff to get to here, and we want to get to CRN story time, so we're going to start rambling. Let's get to it.
Roll.
Recap from last week. Last Saturday, things got rolling in Delaware, Dover, for the Xfinity Series. When all was said and done, the series had a new first-time winner. Not first time this season, first time, period. Ryan Truex, younger brother of producer John's favorite driver, Cup Series driver Martin Truex Jr., and the 31-year-old was dominant, too. 124 laps led out of 200. He swept both stages, got that elusive first win by almost 5 seconds. You can't really get much more dominant than that.
Yeah, that's a lot at Dover.
Second place went to super sub Josh Berry. We'll talk about him more in a bit. Justin Allgaier, Austin Hill, John Hunter Nemechek in there as well. Sammy Smith, Cole Custer. We'll get back to that. Brandon Jones, Sam Mayer, and Daniel Hemrick. That seventh place finish for Cole Custer made him the top finisher of the Dash for Cash competitors at Dover, and he claimed his second $100,000 check in a row. Again, we'll fill in more on that later. Thing about this is Truex is actually a part-time racer this year. He's not eligible for the Xfinity Series title. That's a shame. Means still only 5 drivers are locked into the playoffs with wins. 3 wins for Austin Hill, 2 for John Hunter Nemechek and Chandler Smith. Sammy Smith and Jeb Burton got a win each. And those who are in on points include and are led by Cole Custer, then Josh Berry, Justin Allgaier, Sheldon Creed, Riley Earps, Daniel Hemrick. Sam Mayer's just in there with a 9-point advantage over Brandon Jones for that 12th and final playoff position. How much more movement do you think is going to happen here? I think we're starting to get there.
It's going to be a little bit, but not much.
It'll be the bottom 2, maybe 3.
Yeah, at best.
Pending wins.
At best.
Because there might be a surprise winner outside of the top 12, but not sure about that. Sunday began with Formula One running in the heat, and I'm talking about heat in Baku, Azerbaijan. Driver who claimed the pole, Charles Leclerc, unfortunately for him and Ferrari, was not the person leading at the checkers. That was, predictably, a Red Bull driver. But not necessarily the one you might be thinking. You're probably thinking Max Verstappen, right? No, Sergio Perez. Perez started third, followed his teammate Max Verstappen, passing Leclerc early in the race. But Perez wouldn't relent, and when Verstappen pitted, it turned out to be bad timing because right after that, a full course caution was tossed. Perez benefited because he had inherited the lead when Verstappen pitted, and he got to pit under yellow while Verstappen was caught behind him. He pulled away to a close for Formula One lead at the end of less than 3 seconds. Sad when we say that's close. Verstappen settles for second, Leclerc third. Fernando Alonso missed out on a podium finish for the first time this season. Carlos Sainz, Sir Lewis Hamilton, Lance Stroll, George Russell, Lando Norris, Yuki Tsunoda round out the top 10. Verstappen still holds the points lead, 93-87 over Perez. Then you got Alonso with 60, Lewis Hamilton 48, 93 for the leader, and you get to fourth, and they're at 48. Ouch. 34 for Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc 28, tied with George Russell. Lance Stroll has 27, Lando Norris 10, 6 for Nico Hülkenberg. So there is a Haas F1 driver sitting in the top 10, barely, in points. Red Bull continued their streak of 1-2 finishes this season. They've got 180 points, leading the Constructors' Cup, to Aston Martin in second with 87. Didn't we call this like after last race, it's over?
We called it before the first one was over.
That's true. Yeah, it's like watching presidential elections and being able to call certain states like Alabama 5 seconds after the polls close.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got. Mercedes 76, 62 for Ferrari. A severe drop from Ferrari 62 to McLaren with 14. 8 for Alpine, Haas F1 7, 6 for Alfa Romeo, AlphaTauri with a deuce, and a single for Williams in 10th. Cup Series was supposed to be next. No. Rain forced NASCAR to delay the race to Monday when the weather did get much better. So we go back to Sunday, where in our own backyard, where I was last weekend, Alabama Speed Week's wrapping up with IndyCar, Barber Motorsports Park. The man on the pole, former F1 driver Romain Grosjean, still searching for that elusive first IndyCar win. And good grief, did it appear that he was going to get it, too. He led the first 30 laps from the pole, and it looked like he was a cat playing with a mouse that was almost dead. I mean, he would pull away to a 1.5 seconds, almost 2-second lead, and then he would kind of let the tires cool off for a little bit, and second place would get to within about a half second, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, yeah, by the way, I've got this accelerator over here, and he'd just pull away again.
Hang on a minute.
But you got to have pit stops. And Romain Grosjean was using a 2-stop strategy, whereas others were using a 3-stop strategy. Kind of strange how that works, but hey, you do what works for you, right?
True.
So you get past. Now, Romain Grosjean would reclaim the lead later, went on to lead another 20-plus laps. He led the most laps of the race, but it was on that second stop when his crew put on the primary, harder compound tires back on his car, while the guy who was trying to chase him, Scott McLaughlin, came down for his third pit stop of the day. He got the softer red alternate tires. That was the key. He was able to get by Grosjean, went on to the win. Grosjean had to settle for second, barely holding off a hard-charging Will Power for that position. Power, then Pato O'Ward, Alex Palou, Christian Lundgaard, Scott Dixon, Alexander Rossi, Felix Rosenquist, and Marcus Ericsson completed the top 10. It was actually an amazing race to watch. It's one of those things where I constantly marvel as to whether or not drivers can get through a race such as Talladega with a minimum number of caution flags. Mm-hmm. There was one caution flag the entire race at Barber.
Yeah, I was amazed there was only one.
I was too, because there was a lot of close racing. There was some contact, but yeah, to only have the one was strange. Marcus Ericsson got a 3-point lead over Pato O'Ward in the standings. Then Alex Palou sits 9 back, 11 down. Scott McLaughlin, Romain Grosjean sits in 5th. He's trailing by 15 points. Quick rundown of the rookie standings. Marcus Armstrong leads the rookie standings. He was running top 10 for a little while there in the race last weekend. He's got 62 points, 47 over Augustin Canapino. Stingray Robb, still can't get over that name, has 37, 34 for Benjamin Peterson.
I bet that was fun saying on PA last week.
I actually didn't call his name out that much. Sorry. I called his name out when his car, I think he was the car that brought out the one caution flag because his car ended up stalling out effectively. He had a mechanical problem towards the end of the race. National Hot Rod Association, where that guy was, got things at ZMAX Dragway in Charlotte running in the 4-wide Nationals after a bit of a weather delay, too, from what I understand.
Huh? I still can't hear. It was a little bit, but
yeah, I got you.
It actually made the track quicker.
I bet. Top Fuel, the winner was Austin Prock. Prock, who was actually last off of the light, came back to beat Leah Pruitt, then Josh Hart and Steve Torrance. And this is unusual. Steve Torrance so badly misjudged the lights, he red lighted by almost 0.2 of a second. Not 200, not 0.002. He red lighted by almost 0.2 of a second. When you're talking about a perfect red light being 0.000, that's forever. How in the world did he misjudge it that bad? I don't think he ever explained it.
I don't know, because when he fired off the line, his crew guy threw his hand like I'm gone, and then he just threw it. In one fell swoop motion, he was like booming and grabbed his hat and threw it down.
Gone.
Like
he knew it right
son of a gun.
Yep. Robert Height was second quickest off the light in funny car, but he gets the win over Alexis DeJoria, then Ron Capps, John Force, 4th out of 4. Derek Kramer was last off the light in Pro Stock car, but he benefits from a red light from Fernando Cuadra Jr. and Matt Hartford, who had to get out of line and get off the gas. Dallas Glenn could not hold off Kramer's charge. Glenn was second, Hartford, then Cuadra. Quickest off the light in Pro Stock motorcycle, Gage Herrera. He was the one who was actually able to hold it from light to finish line. He held the advantage to the other end, besting Matt Smith, Eddie Krawick, and Steve Johnson. And finally, Top Alcohol. Again, we're only going to mention those races where Tony Stewart's involved. He did make it to the finals. He was last off the light, though. Mike Coughlin was the first to react. He went on to get the win, despite being the slowest off the light, however. Smoke claims second over Julie Natas and Cody Crone. He's made it to the finals in 3 of his 5 races to date.
Yeah. That was
not a bad record for a guy who really had never been in a drag racer before.
Saturday, that was interesting to see. One quad of qualifying, I think it was round 3. All 4 quadras were in one quad.
Oh, my gosh.
All 4 of them.
That almost seems unfair.
The dad and the 3 sons.
That almost seems unfair.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Let's see what we got here. Steve Torrance does lead Funny Car points, 35 up over Justin Ashley, 53 over Leah Pruitt. Austin Prox, 55 down, 56 up on Brittany Force as Steve Torrance. Top 5 in Funny Car, Matt Hagan, 58 up on Alexis DeJoria, 69 over Robert Height. Ron Cap, 72 down, Chad Green, 5th, trailing by 129. It gets bigger. Dallas Glenn, an 81-point lead in Pro Stock Car over second place Matt Hartford, with Troy Coughlin Jr. 119 down, 154 out is Derek Kramer and Camry Caruso. That guy's surprise pick for 2023, 164 down, but he is in 5th. Gage Herrera is up in triple digits in Pro Stock Motorcycle. He leads by 102 over Matt Smith. 120 down is Eddie Craywick. Angie Smith trails by 129, and 133 out is Birmingham's own Steve Johnson. And for the record, Julie Natas leads top alcohol points over Sean Cowie. Tony Stewart's 3rd. He trails that by 43 points. Then we get to what dawned a sunny Monday in Delaware. Cup Series got the race in finally. When it was over, it actually turned out to be a family affair. We talked about Ryan Truex winning on Saturday. Monday, Martin Truex Jr. found himself in victory lane, and that ends a 54-race winless streak for producer John's favorite driver.
Yay!
He started 17th, but man, had a rocket all day. Just kept passing people on his way to the win with only 69 laps to remaining. He finally got the lead, held on to claim the win. Ross Chastain muscled and roughed up a few people on his way to second place. Ryan Blaney, William Byron, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, Brad Keselowski, Christopher Pusher, Chris, and the super sub, Josh Berry, sitting in the top 10. 3 drivers have 2 wins to lock themselves into the playoffs. Those drivers are Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, and William Byron. You got your single-time winners, Christopher Bell, Martin Truex Jr., Tyler Reddick, Joey Logano, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. The rest of your 16 feature and are led by Ross Chastain, then Kevin Harvick, Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski, Chris Buescher, Alex Bowman, and Chase Briscoe. Briscoe has a 19-point lead over Daniel Suarez for that final playoff slot. So that brings us to this weekend where actually racing is going on right now. But you'd have to find the CBS Sports Network to actually find the coverage, so don't worry about it. We'll keep you updated. Formula E is running the Monaco E-Prix on the very same circuit Formula One's going to run later on this month, the 19-turn, 2.07-mile-long course, street course in the high-rent city on the French Riviera. Again, CBS Sports Network's got the coverage, but we'll keep you updated. We'll talk about it when we come back from the first break. Tonight, as we air live, Saturday night, Kansas Speedway Craftsman Truck Series running the Heart of America 200, airing on Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio, starts 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central Time. Is this the race where we have that special little sticker on that particular number 32 car? Or truck, I should say?
No.
No. Okay. We're working on something.
Yeah.
We'll just leave it at that. Sunday racing begins with Formula One holding the first of 3 United States-based races. It'll be the Crypto.com Miami Grand Prix. It's running on a course made out of the Hard Rock Stadium parking lot, which they call the Miami International Autodrome. Their name, not mine.
Sponsored by the Dolphins.
Exactly. 3.3 miles long, 19 turns. ABC has coverage of the race tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central Time. And for the second week in a row, Fox punts. They chose not to pit Cup against IndyCar last weekend, even though, it got rained out. They choose to not pit network to network against Formula One on ABC. They're moving the Kansas race, the Advent Health 400, to Fox Sports 1. MRN Radio also on the call, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central Time start. IndyCar and Xfinity are both off. So with that being said, now that we got the recap out of the way, say we get to some news here.
A little bit.
We will start off in the Cup Series as we have the last few weeks, because it does seem like for the last few weeks, the biggest stories have been coming out of the Cup Series. And we got some huge news coming out of the Cup Series specifically this week, and it deals with one team in particular deciding, you know what? We're going to move away from the car maker we've been running. We'll tell you about it next on CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. on the Championship Racing Network.
We are back. I'm Steve West. That's Matt Nicholson with producer John Myers. We're in studio, and we're back on CRN Live after a week where we had some technical difficulties. John was pulling his hair out because he was trying to be co-host to things. He was trying to be co-host to the show while trying to get the CRN Live up, and well, let's face it, CRN Live it was one of those things where it just didn't quite work out because producer John was the only one in studio.
That's why I kept my mic turned off most of the time.
Well, we're back, so we appreciate all your patience, and we appreciate you listening or viewing us, depending on exactly how it is that you're checking us out.
Before we get rolling into the news,
let's do this.
I want to send a shout out to my baby girl.
My niece.
My youngest child turns 25 today.
How in the world did that happen?
I don't know, but I feel so darn old.
Yeah, me too. Happy birthday, Jillian.
Happy birthday, baby.
Happy birthday.
All right, let's get to it. Do we have a picture? No, we don't. Okay. Biggest news of the week came out at Cup Series again. Legacy Motor Club, or Legacy MC. They're changing car makers for 2024. A little bit of a surprise, considering that part owner Jimmy Johnson has always been associated with Chevrolet in his Cup career. And, well, Maury Gallagher, who has the guy behind GMS Racing, remember, this is the year that they changed from Petty GMS Racing to Legacy Motor Club. Remember that? He's been involved with Chevrolet basically since he got in, too. Mm-hmm. So them switching to Toyota is odd. But, of course, if you're going to become a Toyota team, who are you aligning with? Joe Gibbs Racing. We'll find out. This does help Toyota, though. Toyota Racing Development, they've long been lagging behind their competitors Chevrolet and Ford in car count in the Cup Series. Sometimes it has been really only the four Joe Gibbs Racing cars. For the last couple of years, they had the two cars from sister company 2311, not 23 by 1, Racing, owned by Joe Gibbs Racing driver Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan. This will bring the car count up to 8 full-time racers, pending expansion by either 2311 and or Legacy MC, which, let's face it, neither is really out of the question in the future. Plus, you do have the part-time entry for Legacy, which has the 84. That's the part-time entry for Jimmy Johnson. Johnson said of Chevrolet, quote, clearly we have a long history, 30-plus years with Chevrolet, 20 of those years with Hendrick Motorsports, and what we did together will always be in the record books and something I'll always cherish. But as Maury pointed out, strategically, long-term, this is a foundational piece for a club that, well, this really makes sense. It's really something we need to do, and we have this deep alignment and partnership with Toyota. It's been a fun period of time to get to know them and really understand their passion and how much our core values truly align. But here's the thing for me, and I get this. Legacy MC was never going to be the big fish in the Chevy pond.
No.
Okay?
No.
It's always going to be Hendrick, the next biggest fish, and it's a sizable one, and getting a little bit bigger, thankfully for them, is Richard Childress Racing. Everybody else is the small fish in that pond. Mm-hmm. But as we've talked about, in the Toyota pond, there are only 2 fish, but the pond is about 75% taken up by Joe Gibbs Racing. No disrespect to Michael Jordan and his presence in 2311, but I'm sorry, the biggest fish in the pond will never be anybody but Joe Gibbs Racing.
True.
And that is proven out by the fact that 2311 is aligned with Joe Gibbs Racing, obviously, because one of the co-owners of 2311 is Denny Hamlin, who drives for Joe Gibbs. And now we find out right off the bat that Legacy MC is going to go to Toyota, but they're going to turn around and align with Joe Gibbs. So you went from being a small fish in one pond to being a small fish in another. That's a lateral move.
I could see the move from the sense of a manufacturer support, because they weren't getting the manufacturer support with Chevrolet.
Well, there's only so much to go around. I get that.
True. But from little snippets that I've read throughout the week, I'm not so totally sure they're going to be completely 100% aligned with Joe Gibbs. They may be their own separate entity, because Maury Gallagher's got just as much money, if not more, than Joe Gibbs does.
There is
and
that.
You combine it with Jimmy Johnson.
And I want to make one note, and I saw this morning, and I'm not saying that necessarily this person is a listener or a viewer to CRN, but I'm just going to lay this out there, blanket. There's some people that just can't seem to understand the fact that Toyota's pretty much in NASCAR and pretty much here to stay. And there was a post, and it's a paraphrase because I don't have it sitting in front of me, that basically said that there's only one true 7-time champion now because he claimed that Jimmy Johnson and Richard Petty were traitors by switching from an American brand to a foreign brand. Well, first of all, get over that whole thing, because as many Toyotas are built in the United States as there are Chevrolets or Fords. Number two,
Yep.
Richard Petty really doesn't have that much to do with Legacy MC anymore.
That's why his name is, he has the title of Chairman Emeritus.
He's not really involved anymore. This is Maury Gallagher and Jimmy Johnson's baby now. It really is. Richard Petty's not involved.
That sounds like a duh.
Yeah. That had to be one of the dumbest comments I've seen all week. And when we're talking about social media, that says something.
Yeah. It says quite a bit.
It's going to be interesting to watch and see how this goes. I mean, I'm not unhappy for them, but at the same time, I am curious as to how this is going to go, because we've seen for 2311, it seems to be working. For others that have done or tried to do this, that alignment didn't seem to work out that well.
No.
So we'll find out.
It really didn't. But, I mean, we could be fooled.
But if Maury Gallagher can keep his own feet under himself and not be reliant on Joe Gibbs Racing, as you were talking about, that means he's got a better leg up then. National Motorsports Appeals Panel met on Tuesday. They debated the appeal from Richard Childress Racing regarding the 3-car. You might remember Austin Dillon's team was penalized for an underwing infraction a few weeks ago. Well, the National Motorsports Appeals Panel said, yeah, we're going to keep that particular penalty. So RCR has decided not to appeal further. So the 60-point deduction remains for both Austin Dillon and for RCR as a team owner, plus the 5-point playoff penalty. Assuming that they make it to the playoffs, they will be in a 5-point hole. Crew Chief Keith Rodden will continue to serve out the 2-race suspension. He already sat out last week. He will sit out again this weekend, still has to pay the $75,000 fine. Stewart-Haas Racing, about to have one empty seat. We know Kevin Harvick is stepping out of the 4-car at the end of the year. There's also that issue of the 10-car. Eric Almirola, again, talked about retiring last year before he changed his mind. How long he stays in the Cup Series is still the question. He hasn't mentioned the word retirement this year, so maybe he's going to stick around for another year. But again, we don't know yet. What we do know is this. Once Harvick is gone and once Almirola's gone, that leaves the most tenured SHR driver as 28-year-old Chase Briscoe. Briscoe insists he's ready to take on that responsibility, but even more importantly, Stewart-Haas Racing is not going to contract. They're happy running 4 cars. They are a prominent enough operation to where they can go get drivers to fill out 4 cars. But who's coming in?
You know, you got these stories back to back right here. One little snippet, I'm going to say something real quick.
For it.
It just come to mind. This move with Jimmy Johnson moving to Toyota in an ownership role is no different in my eyes from when Tony Stewart went to Ford.
Yeah, absolutely.
Zero difference.
You know, we said it then, we'll say it, and we just said it earlier on. Hendrick Motorsports is the big fish in the Chevrolet pond. Nobody else is ever going to be able to step up. When Stewart-Haas Racing flipped over to Ford, they immediately put themselves in the running for the biggest fish in the Ford pond.
Yeah.
Now, have they taken advantage of it? Unfortunately for them, not really. Team Penske probably is still the bigger fish, but not by a whole lot in the Ford pond.
Right.
So anyway, who comes in? Now, again, all of these are kind of rumors and innuendos, but there is something here that we want to point out. Now, Zane Smith is the hot shoe in the Ford driver development program, but no real place to put him. So here's the question right now. Could Stewart-Haas Racing kind of interrupt that whole pipeline between Junior Motorsports and Hendrick Motorsports and snag one Josh Berry? Josh Berry's been the Hendrick Motorsports super sub. Remember, he filled in for the injured Chase Elliott for 5 of the 6 races he missed. The only race he didn't do was at Circuit of the Americas. They put a sports car ace in the car instead of having Josh Berry. And truth be told, might have been better if they'd put Berry in the car, because the sports car ace kind of was a little bit flabbergasted at how much beating and banging that the Cup Series drivers actually did there.
as well as a few other F1 drivers too.
That's true.
But
so he's done that. Now he's subbing for Alex Bowman after Alex Bowman's injury, and he's doing well. I mean, he's got, 3 or 4 top 10s?
something like that, yeah.
He's doing quite the decent job of having adapted just like that.
Everything that I've read and everything that I've seen is pointing this to happening.
As far as the rumor is concerned, and I don't necessarily mean this as the pun that it's going to turn out to be, but there may be more fire than just smoke on this one, because Adam Stern of the Sports Business Journal is reporting that Barry is set to sign with no less than KHI Management. That's that sports and marketing agency that is owned by Kevin Harvick, whose clients already include Harrison Burton, Ford driver, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who's been one of the rumored guys that might fill in or take over a Stewart-Haas racing car. And, oh, by the way, there's that guy that's driving the 41 at Stewart-Haas Racing, Ryan Preece. Mm-hmm. So there does seem to be more connection. Now, as of Thursday and Friday, they are close on a deal between KHI Management and Josh Berry. Nothing has been said officially yet. We're keeping an eye on that. Right. But it would seem to pave that way. And again, all the drivers at Hendrick Motorsports are all signed through at least 2024. This is that I got no place to put you sort of thing. We're full at the top. The inn is closed. And Junior Motorsports keeps talking a big game about searching out potentially going into the Cup Series, but they ain't going to be doing that next year. I'm sorry. That ain't happening. They might say that they want to get into Cup racing next year. They'd have to buy an existing team to do it, and I don't know who's selling.
Or one of the charters that may come open for somebody that's underperforming outside of the top 35, I think is what it is. Top 35. The lower 3 out of the top 36, because you got that performance clause in there too.
Right.
So they could say, here you go. We're buying that one because it maybe took away.
I don't know if it's going to happen, though. I just don't know if it's going to happen. I think Josh Berry might have one foot out the door just because he seems ready to go Cup Series racing, and there ain't no place to put him.
True.
Cowlick Racing got themselves a new partner for this season, Campers Inn RV. I got to admit, this is a company that I had never heard of, but they're a family-owned and operated business. They say they have 37 full-service locations around the country. All of them feature sales, service, parts, accessories, and financing for buyers. As part of the multi-year deal, Campers Inn RV will serve as a primary sponsor for races in both Cup and Xfinity for Cowlick, and it begins at North Wilkesboro, where the number 16 car driven by A.J. Allmendinger will have them on the hood and the flanks. The rest of the schedule was not announced. We keep talking about this revolving door, for lack of a better term, of what's going on at Rick Ware Racing. What this tells both Matt and myself is that whatever's going on with Cody Ware, and we talked about him being under arrest a couple of weeks ago when all of this happened and he got pushed out, basically. There seems to be a heck of a lot more to this than just, I'm going to accuse you of something. This seems to be a very permanent deal because Rick Ware Racing is looking long-term. Mm-hmm. They have signed Ryan Newman, not just for one race, for multiple races throughout the course of this year. And Newman hasn't raced in Cup in 2 years, but he's going to help the team take on Darlington, and he said he'll return for several other races throughout the remainder of the year. They didn't say which ones. Based upon what we saw about his part-time schedule from the Superstar Racing experience, it's going to be probably races in and around the southeastern part of the country, though.
Probably.
And let's see what else we got here. How about at the halfway point of the voting? NASCAR released the top 10 vote getters in alphabetical order for the driver who's going to move on into the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro. The 10 drivers getting the most votes, again in alphabetical order, they are A.J. Allmendinger, Eric Almirola, Harrison Burton, Ty Gibbs, Noah Gragson. Showing just how popular of a guy he's become, Corey LaJoie is in there in the top 10. You got Michael McDowell, B.J. McLeod, which is a bit of a surprise to me. Somebody might be stuffing a ballot box. Then you got Ryan Preece and Chandler Smith. Voting is still open, by the way, through 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central Time on May 21st. That's the day of the race itself. Remember, if the top vote getter races his way in, then the second highest vote getter moves in. If the second highest vote getter races their way in, then you go to the next highest vote getter, and so on until you get one. So 3 drivers move on?
No.
Is it 4?
It's
Because you got the 2 opens.
2 opens get in and 1 fan vote.
So it's 3. 3 drivers will move on. Open 1, open 2, open race 1, open race 2, open race A, open race B, whatever you want to call it, and the vote getter. So 3 will move on. Again, if the top vote getter races their way in, second highest vote getter gets in. If the second highest vote getter also races their way in, third highest vote getter gets in. So there you go. When we come back, we'll talk a little Xfinity Series. We'll talk a little Craftsman Truck Series, and NASCAR continues to fill out that 75 greatest drivers list. We'll fill you in on the latest additions coming up after this on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome in. Matt Nicholson will rejoin us here in a little bit. He has to do something for our flagship station, so he'll be absent for at least this segment. Real quick, we promised that we would keep you updated on what's going on in the Monaco E-Prix for Formula E. They are in lap number 23 of 29 as I'm checking it out. And, of course, I may be a little bit behind the television. Nick Cassidy shown as the leader. Mitch Evans, Jake Dennis, Sebastian Fenestraz, and Jake Hughes round out your top 5. So
that's
those
easy
are the guys.
for you to say.
I know. One would think that I'm almost a professional broadcaster or something like that. So anyway, we'll keep an eye on that and let you know what's going on for those of you that aren't watching. Meantime, as we check out the Xfinity Series. We talked about the 2023 Dash for Cash winner at Dover last Saturday. It was Cole Custer. We mentioned he won his second straight $100,000 check with that seventh-place finish. He bettered Sheldon Creed, Jeb Burton, and pole sitter Parker Kligerman. Jeb Burton and Kligerman did not have good days. He got the bonus money. So the checks this year handed out to Justin Allgaier at Richmond, John Hunter Nemechek at Martinsville, and Custer won the extra money at both Talladega and Dover. That brings us to the Craftsman Truck Series, where we start with tonight's race at Kansas Speedway. And Young's Motorsports has said that they're going to take a late model driver, Nick Lights, and put him in their truck. This is going to be the first of several races that Nick will drive for Young's Motorsports throughout the remainder of the 2023 season. Lights is set to drive their number 20 Chevy Silverado. 26-year-old, ran 3 Truck Series races last year driving for Rayom Brothers Racing. He's going to get at least 3 races with Young's this year. We know this. He's going to run tonight, Kansas. He's going to run at Nashville. He's going to run at Homestead, Miami. They do say there is the potential for more. A lot of that has to do with sponsorship. He is going to be sponsored in these 3 races by Precision Measurements Incorporated. It might be a company that you've never heard of, but they are actually a surveying company that works in several eastern states, basically running from Massachusetts down to Florida, and that does include the state of Alabama. GMS Racing. This is that company. Remember, we just talked about 23. We just talked about them and Legacy Motorsports going over to Toyota to join 2311, and of course aligning with Joe Gibbs Racing. And they've made a change mid-season on their 43 truck, but it's not necessarily to go from Chevrolet to Toyota. It deals specifically with the 43 truck, driven by Daniel Dye. Dye gets a new crew chief. It was announced on Monday that immediately Travis Sharp is out.
Goodbye.
Reportedly parting amicably with the team. What does that mean, by the way?
It means that he either saw the writing on the wall and knew it was time to leave, so when they said go, he left.
I guess.
Or
he didn't.
He had
bash up everything on the way.
He had other things.
Door.
He had other things to take care of, so
I guess.
he took the door and said, "Thank you very much, but I'm gone." And they said, "Okay, goodbye," and everybody's happy.
He took the door instead of the boot. In his place, Blake Bainbridge. Bainbridge is a NASCAR veteran of more than 20 years and a Hueytown, Alabama native. He's got time behind the wheel and as a crew chief, so he's been around for a while. This might actually help out Daniel Dye, just like what GMS Racing is hoping for. As for GMS Racing, we talked about it. It's presumed, but it has not been confirmed yet by anyone of note that they're going to switch from Chevrolet to Toyota in the Truck Series. Now, why, you might ask? Of course, GMS Racing is the Craftsman Truck Series operation owned by Legacy MC co-owner Maury Gallagher. With the pending manufacturer switch, it doesn't seem like it would make much sense to keep running Chevrolets in the Truck Series when they're going in the Cup Series to Toyota. But, again, nobody has announced that officially yet. We'll keep an eye out for it. Tricon Garage has announced Cup Series driver Bubba Wallace is set to come in and drive for them in 2 upcoming Truck Series races. They're going to put him in at Darlington and at North Wilkesboro. Wallace is a 2-time winner in the Cup Series, but he's got 6 wins in Truck Series competition. He's going to drive the number 1 for Toyota at Tricon. That's that one that's going to race at Kansas tonight. Going to have Tony Breidinger behind the wheel. So apparently this is going to become like a star truck for them. Sponsorship for Bubba Wallace is coming from Stone Country Records, which will feature different singers on the truck each race that Bubba Wallace runs for them. And then that brings us to what NASCAR's got going on with their 75 greatest drivers list. And we've talked about this. Remember, this is that list that is being added on to. Back in 1998, when they celebrated their 50th anniversary, they came out with a 50 greatest drivers list. That list still is in effect. This list is just in addition to. So they're adding 25 names to it. And the first one that was named on Monday is the guy that you're going to see live on CRN Live and the guy who won last weekend at Dover, producer John's favorite driver, Martin Truex Jr. Got himself a 2017 Cup title to his name, 32 wins in Cup Series competition, including a couple of Coca-Cola 600 wins. Those crown jewel races, if you will, using the Air Bunnies. One of them, he led 392 of the 400 laps to win that race. Good God. He also became the 4th active driver added to the list when he was announced on Monday, and then it became more. Tuesday, Brad Keselowski got named to that list. you're sitting there thinking to yourself, are we scraping the bottom of the barrel? Think about Brad Keselowski's resume, boys and girls. 2012 Cup champion, 35 wins to his credit, 39 wins and a title in Xfinity competition. He won the 2010 title there. He also got a win in the Truck Series racing, so that means he's got a win. He's one of that elite club of less than 40 drivers who has a win in all three top levels of NASCAR. And among those races that he's got to his credit, a 2020 Coca-Cola 600 and a 2018 Brickyard 400. You know, back when they ran the rectangle instead of the road course. We kind of wondered what was going on when NASCAR skipped today in their announcements of additions to the list, but on Thursday we found out why. They decided to put a set of brothers in together. Kurt Busch, we'll go with the oldest of them. The just retired from Cup Series racing driver, 44 years old, brings a resume that includes a Daytona 500 win, a Coca-Cola 600 win among his 34 Cup Series wins, and oh, by the way, the 2004 Cup Series title. He's also got 5 wins in Xfinity Series competition and 4 Truck Series wins. So he's amongst that group that we just talked about with Brad Keselowski, becoming a driver with, again, less than 40 of them, a win in Cup, Xfinity, and Trucks, what we call them now. He also is the only driver with a win in Chevy, Dodge, Ford, and Toyota race cars. So there's that. As for his brother, this was kind of a dumb moment. Kyle, who's all of 38, has all that he needs to be included on this as well. The guy's got over 200 wins in top-level NASCAR competition. He's got 62 Cup wins, 102 Xfinity Series wins, 63 Truck Series wins, 2 Cup titles, 2015 and 2019. Among those, the crown jewel races like a Southern 500, 2 Brickyard 400 wins, and a Coca-Cola 600 win, plus an All-Star race win. He is the first Cup driver to win on every track on the schedule. The first in modern era, by the way. First to win 3 races in a weekend. He's done that more than once. The first time he did it was at Bristol. He holds the record now at 19 seasons with at least 1 win. He broke that tie earlier on this year with Richard Petty. He's the all-time leader in wins as well in Xfinity and Truck Series competition. The other 2 that were added this week, not pictured, by the way, thanks to NASCAR.com for those pictures that you're seeing on CRN Live. The other 2 added this week, Larry Phillips. Larry Phillips was a short track ace from the Midwest. He would go on to claim 5 national championships in what NASCAR now terms the Advance Auto Parts Weekly Series. While records are not 100% complete on him, NASCAR records show him running 289 sanctioned NASCAR races, and between 1989 and 1996, winning 220 of them. That's a 75% plus winning percentage. And we thought it was weird when we said anytime Kyle Busch runs an Xfinity or Truck Series race, we pencil him in as the winner. We could have inked Larry Phillips in anytime he ran in that weekly series. He also has some 13 track championships in 3 different states from 1989 to 1996. So, yeah, let's just say he's deserving of being in. And then there's the late Sam Ard. Ard, well known amongst the late model sportsman drivers. He was always a force to be reckoned with in the NASCAR sanctioned races. He got 22 wins in a 3-year run of what we now call the Xfinity Series as well. From 1975 to 1981, he claimed at least 9 wins in NASCAR late model sportsman division, then joined what we now call the Xfinity Series for its inaugural season, 1983, won 10 races that year, posted 23 top 5s, won the first 2 series titles, 1983 and 1984, claiming 22 wins in 92 races in that time. But serious injuries from a crash in Rockingham in October of 1984 ended his NASCAR racing career. He passed away a few years ago. So congratulations to all of those drivers. Highly, highly deserving of being in as NASCAR's greatest drivers of all time. So good job. Let's see here. Let's go ahead and take a look at a picture here, courtesy of the Superstar Racing Experience themselves, which you will be able to see this on CRN Live on YouTube here in a moment. Lineups are filling quickly. Remember, you got 13 openings per race, okay? Thing about it is, you might be looking at that and going, well, I'm only seeing 12. Let me explain that. 12 of them for highly recognizable names. Again, this is Ray Evernham and Tony Stewart's idea of kind of reviving the old IROC series. So you're trying to grab big-name drivers from several different forms of racing and put them all in there in equally prepared cars on tracks that they might not necessarily normally run. In this case, none of them. Stafford, Thunder Road, Motor Mile, Berlin, Eldora. Some of them might have run Eldora in their past, but it's been a few years. Lucas Oil, Some of them might have run that, depending on, running in the Truck Series and NASCAR and things like that. So those 12 drivers will fill out the fields. There is a 13th race for each and every race, 13 entry for each and every race. That is saved for a driver that is more than likely a previous or current champion at that particular track. So other than the local drivers, which will be named later, there are only now 3 open spots. Here's the thing. At the beginning of the week, there were actually 4. But now there's 3, 1 each at Thunder Road, Eldora, and Lucas Oil. Like I said, at the beginning of the week, there had been 2 at Eldora, but on Thursday, Matt Kenseth announced that he was going to be racing in that race at Eldora. Don't expect those 3 to remain open. As you can see, Thunder Road, Eldora, Lucas Oil, those are the ones that we're waiting to have filled out the rest of the way. Again, I don't expect those will remain open much longer because, remember this, series is set to begin in about mid-July, go into mid-August, mid to late August. That's a point in time where going to ESPN and reviving Thursday Night Thunder, more drivers are available from IndyCar, NHRA, and, of course, NASCAR. They could join for one or, more than one race. So it'll be fun to watch and see how this turns out. And I can't wait for them to get back into the action. Again, thanks to Superstar Racing Experience for that particular graphic right there, which, as I note, our CRN logo covered up Matt Kenseth being added on to Eldora.
Oops.
That's all right. No big deal. Let's see. Turn our attention to the National Hot Rod Association as well as we talk about the straight line drivers. This weekend, going to mark the first time for the Pro Stock car division to get into the All-Star call-out action. By the way, just to let you know, Top Fuel and Funny Car both going to do this. Pro Stock Motorcycle, from what I can tell so far, not going to be a part of this. That might change throughout the course of the season. We'll find out. Anyway, the All-Star call-out action, which will happen on Saturday, May the 20th, will be at Chicago's Route 66 Raceway. This is where 8 standout Pro Stock car drivers are set to face off against each other, with the 4 who are higher in points, higher seeding in other words, getting the chance to call out whoever it is that they want to face off against. As it turns out, this is going to be a 2-team battle. All 8 drivers come from either KB Titan Racing or Elite Motorsports. 4 cars from each of those. Dallas Glenn tops the points. He's the 1 seed. This was not this past week, by the way. This was set a couple of weeks ago, just to let you know. Dallas Glenn, he's the 1 seed. His teammate, Matt Hartford, is the 2 seed. Kyle Koretsky is the 3 seed. Then Aaron Stanfield of Elite Motorsports, he is the 4 seed. His EM teammates follow him. Troy Coughlin Jr., Christian Quadra, and the defending champion, Erica Enders. And then it'll be rounded out. Your 8th seed is KB Titan driver Camry Caruso. So that's the seeding order. Again, the 1 seed will call out whoever they want. They could call out the 2 seed if they choose, but I kind of get the funny feeling all the KB drivers are going to call out Elite Motorsports, and the Elite Motorsport driver in at number 4 will call out the 1 remaining KB Titan driver, if I'm guessing, because they're going to want to try and make this a team battle as opposed to a personal battle. Again, that's Saturday, May 20th. And then there are 3 people from the NHRA that were representatives from several American-based racing series that for the first time since 2019 were able to meet up with the Congressional Motorsports Coalition. And yes, there is one. The National Hot Rod Association's Vice President of Track Management and Operations, Casey Kohler, was joined by 3-time champions Antron Brown and Ron Capps, along with some unnamed representatives that showed up from NASCAR, IndyCar, SCCA, USAC, and IMSA Racing, all discussing the impact that motorsports racing has on the economy of the United States. Not just, obviously, us. It has an effect all around the world, but since they're talking to Congress in the United States. Earlier this year, the Congressional Motorsports Caucus, which you may not have heard of, actually became a much more official caucus. It was officially approved as a congressional member organization. Why it took them so long to do that, I'll never know, but it's Congress. What do you want? The bipartisan caucus has co-chairs. It's Bill Posey, who's a Republican from Florida's 8th District, and Mike Thompson, who's a Democrat from California's 4th District. The intent, they say, is to celebrate motorsports and understanding the impact on culture and on the American economy that motorsports has. I did a little bit of research on these 2 guys. Bill Posey, I don't have a problem with him. Mike Thompson bugs me a little bit.
Just a little?
Just a little bit. Mike Thompson has basically been all in on the whole green movement and trying to do the whole electric car thing and changing everybody into battery operated cars and all that kind of stuff. And I'm curious. I'm sure he's on the list mainly to be that guy that is not the fanboy and trying to keep them all grounded. But I'm also wondering whether or not he's going to be like the one congressperson from Missouri a few years ago who had an absolute conniption fit over the fact that the armed forces were sponsoring motorsports and demanded that they get out of it. It's a recruiting tactic, ladies and gentlemen. That's all that it is. That was a recruiting tactic. The U.S. Air Force is still on Eric Jones's car. But she had an absolute come apart over that. I can't remember her name, and quite frankly, it's not worth going and finding out because she's not worth it. I'm wondering the situation right here from Mike Thompson, this California Democrat. But we'll find out. Time will tell. Maybe he's a better guy than what I think as I keep knocking the microphone cord. Pardon all those people who are listening. I'm trying, but I tend to talk with my hands. All right. Hour 1 is in the books. That means Hour 2 is coming up next. That's when we're going to turn our attention to open wheel racing. We'll start with Indycar and, of course, talk a little Formula 1 and a little Formula E. Race is over there. Congratulations to Nick Cassidy. We'll tell you more about that when we come back as well. Like I said, Hour 1's in the books, but Hour 2 is coming up next as we roll on the Championship Racing Network.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. 4 tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show. Steve West, the absent Matt Nicholson. He's helping the flagship station set up something he should return momentarily. And, of course, producer John Myers in capably running things and getting things back up when it comes to all aspects, radio show and CRN Live on YouTube.
Thank you very much.
Real quick, let's run down what happened in Formula E. The race is over. Nico Muller apparently did something stupid, caused a safety flag to come out. Safety car. Sorry. That's what they call it in open wheel racing.
I was going to say, I thought it was safety car.
Yes, it's safety car.
Yes.
It came out on lap 24 of 29. And anyway, they ended up finishing the race under caution. I'm sorry, I'm going to use the NASCAR term. So Nick Cassidy's your winner. Mitch Evans second. Jake Dennis, who had the fastest lap of the race, finishes third. I called him Sebastian last hour. I apologize. It's Sasha Fenestrans. Jake Hughes, Dan Ticktum, Jean-Eric Byrne, Sebastian Wemming. There's the Sebastian. Sorry. Stoffel Van Dorn. Somewhere. Yeah, I know. Stoffel Van Dorn and Sam Bird round out your top 10 there. So, yeah, everything is done over in Monaco, and Nick Cassidy is the winner. So congratulations to him. We'll run down the points because they have not been updated. Probably won't be by the time we finish the show. We'll talk about it next week. But, yeah, congratulations to him. Winning at Monaco, it may be one of those deals where Formula E hasn't run there for very long, but it's still Monaco. It's one of those crown jewel races that we keep talking about in the world, not just in Formula One. It is considered to be like the Indy 500, a world crown jewel race. So, not a bad thing. As we noted at the beginning of the show, and in case you missed hour one, you missed a lot. Got to remember, we're a 2-hour show. I was out at Barbara Motorsports Park last week. I wasn't even able to be part of the show. It was all Matt and all producer John, and I thank them for holding down the fort. What we found out was just before the race began on Sunday, Zoom Motorsports, they are the race promoters for IndyCar at Barber, announced they had come to terms on a deal, and that'll keep IndyCar racing at Barber Motorsports Park through the year 2027, and that's at least. They may come to terms later on another deal. The race, which is now entitled the Children's of Alabama Indy Grand Prix, has been run at Barber since 2010. Medical Properties Trust is the actual sponsor of the race, but what they have chosen to do, these guys, we talked about them a little bit more, kind of going, I don't know. I'm trying to remember when this was. It was a few months ago anyway. Medical Properties Trust is a company all around the world that deals with properties that they can put medical facilities on. And in this case, they chose to, instead of highlighting themselves, they wanted to highlight a local hospital facility, and they chose Children's of Alabama, which is a great place. I got a good friend of mine who works down there. So it was really, really cool deal. They've signed a 5-year deal for the naming rights for that earlier this year. So those two now kind of combine together. So Medical Properties Trust, they may choose to go to a different hospital next year. They may choose to keep it at Children's. I don't know, but either way, they'll be there through 2027 at least, and I think that is absolutely fantastic because it was a great time out there. Penske Entertainment President and CEO Mark Miles said, quote, "With its unique layout and dramatic features, this beautiful facility is a favorite with our fans and within our paddock. It is called the Augusta of Motorsports," kind of equated it with that beautiful course where golf holds the Masters tournament each and every year, and truth be told, they're right. And it was in fine shape last week. Sorry, he needs a microphone over there. And you're right. They're not wrong, Matt. When we did have a little bit of rain, as we welcome Matt back into the show, they did have a little bit of rain Saturday night into Sunday morning, but by the time I got there, and I had to be there by about 7:30, sun was shining and the track was drying off real fast.
Yeah.
So they did a fantastic job of getting it out there, and there were several support series that were out there, amongst them 2 different divisions of the Porsche Sprint Challenge. I was trying to remember the other one, but there was that, and Indy Next was out there. So there was actually a whole lot of racing out there throughout the course of the weekend. It was a lot of fun, had a great time out there, and might be going back.
Time will tell. Time will tell.
I'm not going to be unhappy about it if I get called to go back. Let's just put it that way.
Especially after I seen that menu you had for food.
Oh, God. Okay. Let's talk about this.
I mean,
now, I will say this, as I keep knocking that stupid microphone. Talladega puts out great food, okay? Every single year, we look forward to the media day where we get a pork chop. And it's not just that little pork chop that you kind of get when you go to any regular restaurant. I'm talking about this thing is like going and ordering a ribeye steak at your favorite steakhouse. But the thing is done so well, you can cut it with plasticware. A plastic knife and a fork will cut through this pork chop. It is absolutely fantastic. So Talladega does do food well.
1.5 inches thick.
Oh, yeah. The thing about it is, and this is just Sunday's menu. I took a picture of this because I sent it to Matt and I sent it to my wife. I don't think you've even seen this, John. Here's the menu that we had for lunch on Sunday at Barber Motorsports Park. And these guys were really, really cool. They gave me the chance to be able to go and, have time to be able to go do this. So it's kind of a buffet style thing. You had your choice of petite ribeye with veal jus and horseradish dill cream, signature shrimp and tasso grits with smoked bacon and mushrooms, or Cajun chicken cassoulet with Conecuh sausage. That's your main deal. You can pair with it jumbo asparagus with sweet peppers and spicy toasted almonds, or haricot vert, which I don't even know what the heck that is, with lemon, mint, and extra virgin olive oil. Then you got a gourmet salad bar and assorted desserts, and you could go to a drink bar where you could get water, soda, or if you wanted, I was working, I didn't, I was a good boy, I could have gotten a mixed drink. And guess what I would have had to pay for it? Nothing. I'll leave that there. We'll get back to story time on that later. Continuing on with IndyCar information here. Got another picture for you. This will be the last picture of the weekend, and this is courtesy of IndyCar.com, where AJ Foyt Racing is teaming up with their longtime sponsor, ABC Supply. They're going to help veterans in the upcoming Indy 500, something that they've been doing over the past few years. They're going to take the famous 14 car, the one that AJ Foyt himself raced, now driven by Santino Ferrucci. It'll sport a very patriotic paint scheme, which you'll be able to see here momentarily. It'll feature a little bit less ABC Supply, a little bit more Homes for Our Troops. It's a nonprofit organization that builds new or customizes existing homes for severely injured post 9/11 victims and veterans. ABC Supply Company is going to assist. They're going to match all the donations up to $1 million that are made to the group. Again, Homes for Our Troops, which you can go online and find out more, hfotusa.org. Go there, hfotusa.org/donate. And any money you donate through the entire month of May up to $1 million, ABC Supply will match. Last year, the company made a similar match, and over a 10-day fundraising effort reached that max. Hopefully, they'll be able to do it again, because this is for a fantastic cause. And that right there.
That is a pretty car.
That is a sharp-looking car. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, they're able to get that thing up towards the front in Indy, coming up later on this month. Now, we noted Jimmy Johnson working with Legacy MC as a driver and co-owner. The switch we noted as well from Chevrolet to Toyota coming for 2024. Then he was asked during the press conference about his plans to compete in an upcoming Indy 500. Now, he punted on this year, and he punted on next year as well. He said that NASCAR needs to be his priority for 2023 and 2024, but adds that he's still keeping the door open to running a future Indy 500. Despite running only about a half a dozen races in the Cup Series this year, and Johnson's real only racing this year outside of NASCAR set to be the Garage 56 entry at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, this is a matter of getting approval from his car maker again. Chevrolet said, despite Chip Ganassi Racing running Honda engines, that they were going to allow Johnson to run in a future Indy 500 with Chip Ganassi. Well, that's out the door, because now they're going to Toyota. So he has to get Toyota's okay to do it. Here's the thing. This should be a rubber stamp. Mm-hmm. Because Toyota Racing Development actually has a general policy. Now, this could obviously change pending the driver and what situation they're going with. But as a general rule, Toyota Racing Development, TRD, has a general policy that states that their drivers can race for other car makers in series that they, Toyota, don't themselves compete in. And let's face it, How many times have we talked about it? The only two car makers or engine makers in IndyCar right now are Chevrolet and Honda.
Yep.
So it should mean that they'll be willing to approve his running in a future Indy 500 of his choice, should he so insist upon doing so. And I would be interested to see him do it. Mainly because, again, this is that double thing. He keeps talking about being willing to run the double.
Mm-hmm.
And we already know that he could basically jump into that Legacy MC number 84 car, be it Chevy or Toyota, it doesn't matter, at any point in time he wants to.
Yeah.
This is a perfect layout for him to be able to run that double.
Oh, absolutely it is. Hands down, no question.
Question is when is he going to do it?
Exactly.
Interjection. He's nixed it for this year.
Yeah.
Next year is maybe.
It's pretty much all but out.
How old is this guy now?
40.
He's closing in on my age.
I want to say 47, 48 years old.
My hat's off to him.
Somewhere in that area.
If he can do it at his age.
This is a dude, I'll give him a lot of credit. I mean, Jimmy Johnson's one of those guys. He runs marathons. 47 years old. The dude has run marathons. He bikes religiously. I mean, this is a man who is in much better shape than a 48-year-old has a right to be. So if anyone can do it, I think honestly Jimmy Johnson could do it. And as much as we have been, and all three of us have been critical of his driving in IndyCar, he came to life on oval tracks. Because that's what his strength was.
That's what he knows.
Exactly. That was his strength. The fact that he went into IndyCar his first year and said, I'm not driving the ovals, I was flabbergasted, and pretty much we all three were on this show because we were like, dude, that's what you know.
I have a feeling had he included all the tracks,
he might have been better at it.
He would have, I'd say probably, he'd have a better than a 500 batting average.
As far as finishing inside the top 20?
Yeah.
Yeah, I could see that, absolutely.
Yeah, I could too.
Because he could have gotten a heck of a lot more used to that car a heck of a lot quicker.
Well, I'd even place him in the top 10 for the oval tracks.
Oh, sure. And as proven by the fact that last year, what was it, at Texas, he finished in the top 5?
Texas and Iowa.
Now, this is coming from an anti-Jimmy Johnson fan, okay?
I know, yeah. Exactly.
And I would put him in the top 10 easily at any oval track in an Indy car.
Yeah. I mean, he ran at Texas, which is a 1.5 mile track, and let's face it, if there was anyone that was good at a 1.5 mile track in the history of NASCAR, it's Jimmy Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that 1.5 mile program that they had at Hendrick Motorsports while Jimmy was running that 48 over there for them, are almost unbeatable.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter whether it was Charlotte, Atlanta, Texas, Las Vegas, Kansas, you name it, he could do it.
Yeah.
Okay? So Texas wasn't a surprise. Iowa shouldn't have been a surprise either, because while NASCAR's Cup Series doesn't run at Iowa, they run at Richmond.
Yep.
And when Rusty Wallace helped build the Iowa Speedway, he based it on Richmond. So it shouldn't come as a shock to anybody that he did well there.
Nope.
Jimmy Johnson did well in the Brickyard 400. Why would it be a surprise that he would do well in the Indy 500? He knows the track. He's familiar with the track. Go get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Even though I'm an anti-fan of his, I would have liked to see him run all the ovals and do well.
Yeah, I would have too. But, hey, we might get a W out of him yet. We'll see. 2023 class of the Indianapolis Motorsports Hall of Fame consists of 2 people. Team Penske president Tim Cindric is going in, and a guy who I have to admit I honestly thought he was already in. Former president and CEO of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Corporation. You know, that was the company that Penske Entertainment bought Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the IndyCar Series from. Mm-hmm. Tony George. It was whittled down to those 2 from a field of 14 nominees put in by a panel of over 150 journalists and historians, among others. No, we were not among them. They'll be inducted on May the 26th. I would have been interested to see exactly who the 14 nominees as a whole were.
Same here. It probably was a diverse field.
I would imagine. I mean, if you're going Cindric from Penske, Team Penske, and then you bring in Tony George, it does make me wonder, if Tony George wasn't already in, who else is on that list that is probably deserving of being in that isn't in yet?
Right. Absolutely
Just
right.
to let you know, Matt, John, and we're all willing to be a part of that group.
Sold.
Saying. Then there's Vice Media. We've been talking about these guys. They're one of the companies behind the CW Network's 100 Days to Indy. They just got done with episode number 2, and I'm liking it. I really am. But Vice Media is going through some financial troubles. Some reports claiming they're facing bankruptcy. The first episode brought in 189,000 viewers. They did a rebroadcast on Sunday night, drew in more people, 196,000. Thursday night was a busy night. 3 episodes are complete. There was a 4th that's currently in production because they did taping at Barber Motorsports Park for that 4th episode last weekend. Thing is, the New York Times newspaper is reporting that Vice Media is close to being forced into bankruptcy. They're actively seeking a buyer for the company in hopes of avoiding it. The company was at one time valued at $6 billion.
That's with a B, right?
That's with a B, not an M. A B. $6 billion. They started out in 1994 as a music, art, and trends magazine out of Montreal, Canada, grew into a global news operation working in numerous countries and had investors that included names like Disney, Fox, and A&E. Not small names. However, digital media companies have begun to fall out of favor, and Vice has reportedly lost money consistently now for several years. Some of the investors, like Disney, have either been lowering their investment or backed out completely. They state that the value of the company's assets, just the assets, is about $1 billion. So they've lost $5 billion in value over the course of the last few years. Now, Racer.com reports that IndyCar officials are very happy with what they've seen out of 100 Days to Indy so far. IMS Communications Vice President Alex Damron told Racer.com, quote, "We love the show. We're very encouraged by the early response." And Racer.com says at this time there are no concerns about the ability to complete production on 100 Days to Indy. Take that for what it is.
Well, then.
I like the series. I think it's very, very well done. I like the back and forth. If you have watched the Netflix Formula One Drive to Survive series, you're very familiar with the format. Racing action, on-track action, behind-the-scenes action that's, interspersed in there with one-on-one interviews. It's really, really good stuff. Check it out if you have not already.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. Two tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show. We're going to carve in time this time around for some CRN story time because we actually got to do a couple of different weeks here. Alabama Speed Weeks, where all three of us were able to be at Talladega Super Speedway for race weekend. And, of course, last weekend, Matt was in Charlotte, North Carolina to check out the NHRA races. I got called last minute to be at Barbara Motorsports Park and be a PA announcer out there for the 3 days of Indycar's weekend out there. So, yeah, we got stories to tell, and we'll get to it. Meantime, let's talk a little Formula One action where Sir Lewis Hamilton does kind of seem to be on a year-to-year deal with Mercedes, but Toto Wolff insists that he is very serious about signing the 7-time champion, despite some rumors that have been floating around saying that the team might end up pursuing Ferrari driver Charles Leclerc. Now, Leclerc claimed his first podium finish of 2023 last weekend. He would be a good alternative, let's face it, but Wolff, who's the team boss at Mercedes, insists he is committed to Hamilton, and George Russell is on a multi-year deal in the other car for Mercedes. As for talking to Leclerc, wow, Wolff slammed on the brakes hard. He said this, quote, I think he's 100% committed and loyal to Ferrari, and it's in his contract, and in the same way that we are 100% committed to putting pen to paper with Lewis. I think nobody doubts Charles's ability, and he's a good guy, but the only time I've talked to him was to ask him where the gate is in Melbourne to board the plane. No contact otherwise. How many times has Wolff been to Melbourne, Australia, versus how many times Charles Leclerc's been there?
Well,
I mean, Wolff's Mercedes has been since at least 2013 when they signed Lewis Hamilton. Wolff's been in charge. Leclerc's only been at Ferrari for about, 4 or 5 years?
something like that, yeah.
Toto? One would think you would know better than Charles did.
True.
Just saying. Anyway, Hamilton met with media on Friday in Miami ahead of this weekend's race, and as it always seems to, the subject of potentially racing in NASCAR came up. Hamilton referenced a Formula One NASCAR swap that he did back in 2011 at Watkins Glen. Quote, I did a car swap with Tony Stewart years ago. It was fun. I'd love to try it at some stage. Talking about NASCAR racing. Quote, it's not a dream for me to go race in another series, but I am an admirer. I'm a fan of racing and other sports, so I would like to try it. That's going to be future. Certainly isn't going to happen at any point in time. He's still racing in Formula One, let's face it. But it would be interesting to see him, I don't know, try a Daytona 500 or something. You know, we got that Project 91 entry.
Question would be is which manufacturer tries to kill each other first to get Lewis Hamilton to run one of those races.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see who it
But
would.
kids, we know the process for super speedway approval. Could you say the largest watched and attended ARCA race in the history of its existence
God,
if
yes.
Lewis Hamilton had to do that?
Absolutely.
Crazy.
Then there's the FIA drivers who are getting ready to close that expression of interest. Their words, not mine. I don't know why they chose that. Anyway, expression of interest window for prospective new team owners in Formula One. Michael Andretti has upped his ante once again, committing to, if granted a Formula One operation, starting his own multi-tier organization similar to what he has in IndyCar. Now think about it. Andretti Autosport already has entries in junior open wheel racing along with 2 rungs of the Road to Indy ladder, the USF Championship and Indy Next, formerly Indy Lights. For Andretti Global, which is the would-be parent organization over their Formula One team, he said he would set up a program similar to IndyCar in the Formula One feeder divisions. He told Racer.com, quote, we would set up shop over in England where we're going to have the engineering shop for the Formula One team. If the F1 deal comes through, I want to do Formula 3 and Formula 2 as well. I want to be in control of bringing our drivers up through the system because then you know what kind of equipment they have and how they're being treated.
I can't fault him.
So let me see here. Since this expression of interest thing came about and Michael Andretti has talked about, I don't know, what, a year or so?
At least.
Give or take, of wanting to be in Formula One as a team owner.
At least.
He has set aside on his own, he had set aside at least $250 million simply for seed money for this.
Right.
And that was as of about a year ago. After that, he paired with Cadillac. So now it's Andretti Cadillac. He's already said and effectively is building, I should say, a new headquarters in Indiana that will house Andretti Global as an organization, but has said we will have the shop in England, and on top of that, we want to put in our entries into a feeder series. If the FIA and Formula One don't understand that for all intents and purposes, Michael Andretti is the goose laying a golden egg, you guys are morons.
Yeah.
This right here is a much better backed entry than Manor or Marussia or any of the ones that came in 2010 were. Because remember what we were talking about earlier about those 2010 entries where 3 of them came in the same year? How many of them are still running in Formula One? None of them. Not a single one. And you want to know why? They weren't anywhere near as well backed as what Michael Andretti has. Michael Andretti's got a history in racing. He's got his hands in several different series. I mean, just in IndyCar, we were talking about it alone. He's got IndyCar, Indy Next, USF Championship, and Junior Open Wheel Racing. That's 4 different teams and 4 different divisions of racing alone going up to IndyCar. And he's got all the other stuff that he's dealing with. The man's a success. He's got the money. He's got the backing. He's willing to go into multiple divisions in Formula One. If they give any other team their operation, if they approve any other operation to go into Formula One and don't approve Andretti Autosport, they're idiots.
Yep. Shame on them.
Absolute morons.
Shame on them.
I'll lay it out there right now. Into gaming, Formula One and EA Sports have announced the release date for F1 23. This is the official video game of the series, set to hit store shelves June 16th. It'll be available for Sony's PlayStation 4 and 5 platform, Xbox One, and Series XJS. Is that a handheld? Or is that a console?
Yes.
Okay.
Handheld.
Then there's also one for your PC, should you choose to do it that way. Sir Lewis Hamilton will be on the cover alongside Lando Norris and Charles Leclerc. Well, what about the two-time defending champion Max Verstappen? Max Verstappen is all alone on the cover of the Digital Champions Edition. That gives buyers early access by 3 days and other benefits, which, whatever, if you're willing to do it.
Sorry, guys, but now that I'm full bore in iRacing, I probably will never run a console game ever again.
Just to let you know, though, new features for 2023, if you are a console gamer, include new refined handling models and the option to drop total race distances to 35% of that in real length, so that way you're not sitting in front of your console for 2 hours racing. The new for 2023 Las Vegas course is indeed in there as well, with EA Sports adding this, quote, "We're adding more race authenticity by introducing red flags." I think it's reintroducing, actually. Plus the 35% race distance, giving players more strategy. Our refined handling delivers more predictable behavior and better traction to help our players attack the circuit and get on the podium. There is a trailer out. The official trailer for the latest video game is in the latest section on Formula1.com. I checked it out, and they do have one of those deals where you get, shots. It's almost like I'll keep referencing it. The Netflix Formula One Drive to Survive, where they're sitting down interviewing drivers.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be darned if they don't. I don't know which one they were using, but man, the drivers look like they do in real life. They have done a fantastic job with that.
I'm just waiting to see when Formula One Drive to Survive does a hit in North Carolina. Gunther Steiner lives there.
I know. I would.
He lives not all that far from ZMAX.
I would be very interested to see if they would do it.
True. Well, considering one branch, let's word it that way, the Haas F1 headquarters is in Kannapolis.
Yeah, and it's literally on the same little dead end cul-de-sac or whatever you want to call it with Stewart Haas Racing. There's the big building. There's the big building with Stewart Haas Racing, and right next to it, Haas F1.
First time drove this guy by there. Oh, there's Stuart Haas. Oh, there's Haas F1.
Yeah, I went, wow, I didn't realize they had that, and certainly didn't realize it was that big.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very cool stuff. And one more note here before we go to break here, and then we'll have a little fun talking tales of our times at different tracks. Formula E, where, again, they just wrapped up their race over in Monaco. South Korean tire company Hankook, they're in their first year as the official tire provider for Formula E. It really hasn't been all that smooth going. The tires have actually been under a lot of criticism because they feel like, we're talking about the drivers now, feel like the compounds Hankook is using are too hard and lacking grip in comparison with last year's tires made by Michelin. Now, Michelin had the rights to be the sole tire provider for Formula E from year 1 to year 8. Then Hankook took over. But despite all these concerns, Hankook has said that next year, they're going to use the exact same compound. Hankook's European Motorsports Director, Manfred Sandbichler.
Say that 5 times fast.
It's not necessarily Manfred Mann's Earth Band. Manfred Sandbichler said to motorsport.com, I should say, quote, "It is always easy to say that the tire is hard. The grip level, not enough. Think about what we're doing now in Gen 3. This is the 3rd generation of the Formula E racer. We have a new car. We have everything new, so that means that everybody has to learn. When you change something essential, there's always a big impact for the whole championship. But as long as you deliver a safe product, a product which shows the same performance from the first until the last lap, I guess there's nothing to complain about. Seriously, this is a driver's job to complain." Well, that guy right there is our resident driver. So
it's the driver's job to complain to a degree. To a degree.
All right. So let's ask this. Let's talk tire compounds for a moment.
Yeah.
Now, dirt and asphalt obviously are a little different, but there are tire compounds that you can use on dirt as well, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
What did you prefer to run?
It was really dependent on which track I unloaded at.
Okay.
Because every track has a different tire rule in the interest of cost cutting and competitive fairness, which in dirt racing, that's massive.
Sure.
All right. If I went to a track with an open tire rule, which that means you could run any tire combination, and there are a select few, you can run any tire combination that you want to run.
Okay.
Whether it be, which they've changed it up some. I'm not really sure what all the new compounds are of Hoosier because they limited it down, but there used to be anything up from what's called a D11, which is the softest compound you can get, to a D70, which is like asphalt level hard.
Okay. It's like running on the Flintstone cement tires.
All right. When it allowed me to, my preference was run a tire compound known as the 1450. That's your medium compound tire. It's got plenty of grip, but it doesn't give up too quick.
Okay.
And once heat gets built in there, you can set sail. I absolutely despised running and it's basically the same compound, a D55 or a 1600. I hated it.
Okay.
Because it takes too long, and you've heard this, everybody's heard this term before, it takes too long to fire off.
Okay.
Way too long.
Yep.
You had to go into a run about 5-6 laps before you knew when heat was getting in the right rear because you could feel the grip level of the car change.
Sure.
Fire off being get the tires hot enough so they'll stick to the track.
Build the heat in the tires. There you go.
Car won't fire off. The term of in the top of the racetrack, that's what that means. Unless, in which the old adage dirt racers know, unless the tire was juiced. I'll leave it at there. I have had a tire on that's been juiced, and it will fire off way quicker than a regular 1600. But that was my preference, run a medium compound tire because it gave me the best feel.
We do have story time coming up on deck. I want to get back to this because we want to go back over this Hankook thing because I think that there's more to it, and we can dig in a little bit more on that, and then we'll get into CRN story time. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll take a break right here. When we come back, hey, story time's on deck right here on CRN.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Yes, we are. CRN Storytime is on deck. First things first, I want to get back into talking about this tire situation here. All right. For those that don't know, talk to me about tire soaking. What does that do? What do you do, and what does that do?
When you soak tires,
And what do you soak them with?
that's what I'm getting into. There's ways you do this. You soak it with some type of chemical compound.
Okay.
I mean, word it that way. I've seen people soak tires in WD-40, brake fluid. I've seen people spray brake cleaner on tires.
Okay.
Main two being WD-40 and brake fluid. I haven't seen it, but I've even heard of somebody soaking tires in diesel fuel. What they do is they will soak the tires. They will get the tire soaked. They'll wrap it in cellophane wrap. Then they'll take it out of the cellophane wrap for 24 hours, put it in a rotisserie. Let it soak, let it in the rotisserie, get heat in it for, I've seen people do this 4 hours. I've seen it do it for 6 hours. And then when it comes out, you can change a D55 compound to a D21 just like that.
Any of that legal?
Not anymore. I have seen, and one thing I'll touch on real quick before we get to story time, because I know we're all anxious to do that.
Sure.
I've seen a very well-known racer that will drive anything, anywhere, that has tire stamps. He's taken a different compound tire, one compound tire, stamp it with the compound tire that's legal for the race, and run it different. I've seen it. And had the identical stamp from Hoosier.
I got you. Okay, one more ask real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Uncooked Tires states that brand new car, Gen 3 car, first year that we're using it, brand new tire, everybody's just going to have to get used to it. Does that have validity to it?
That's what you want to call it. I don't think so.
Okay. Uncooked should be willing to change up,
Should.
be willing to
They
modify
should.
themselves. Okay.
Should.
Gotcha. All right. So let's get into CRN story time. I'll start off, and I'll talk about last weekend at Barber myself. This was one of those things that was an absolute shock. It was an absolute surprise. Was not expecting it. It was something that from the very first year, and my wife and I, we joined another couple out there the very first year that they ran, 2010, at Barber Motorsports Park. We all went, and it was great. We had a great time, fantastic facility. I kept looking around and thinking, man, it would be great to do what I do at Talladega, because I'd already been at Talladega since the fall race of 2007, as I've said. And I thought it would be really, really cool to work there. Never actually really thinking that it was going to happen at any point in time in the near future. And my thanks to a person who I've been around a lot of my career with here in Birmingham, and I've been working in and around the Birmingham area since 1997. And producer John knows this gentleman as well, Derek Scudder. Derek Scudder has been in and out of radio, and he is well known in doing a lot of PA stuff in and around the Birmingham area. He is the main PA announcer for the Birmingham Barons AA Southern League baseball team. He's the main PA announcer for the Birmingham Stallions USFL football team and for Birmingham Southern College, amongst other things. I think he even does some work for UAB. Mm-hmm. They tried to get in touch with him because apparently whoever is Barber Motorsports Park's regular PA announcer had some form of a medical emergency.
Sure.
They knew about Derek. They contacted Derek. Derek had to work Birmingham Barons last weekend, so he could not work for Barber Motorsports Park. Derek, thank you, gave them my name and number, got in touch with me, and despite the fact that it was, well, for all intents and purposes, Thursday, when they got in touch with me, I was able to move some things around, and I was able to go out and do it. I gave you the menu out there. I will say this. We've talked about the night and day difference between where we sit now at Talladega and the phone booth that we would sit at Darlington.
Superman's booth.
This is kind of a combination of the two, truth be told. It is a smaller booth than what we have at Talladega. It almost seems like an afterthought because it doesn't have its own counter like we do at Talladega. They put in a fold-away table and a couple of fold-away chairs. So it was almost like the PA booth was like, you know what, we need a PA booth. Well, we'll put it there. But it's a nice area, although the air conditioning doesn't work all that well. And because of the way that it's oriented, the sun beats in the morning, and therefore it gets really, really toasty in there. But I had a great time. I worked with some great people. Ruthie from the Indianapolis Racing Network, IndyCar Racing Network, she was fantastic to work with. She was my main go-between. And the two producers from the IndyCar Racing Network were fantastic with me. And there is a major difference I've noted in that all NASCAR tracks now have those screens that are around the track to where you can kind of get up close and personal. You can see replays, things like that. Stuff that you might not necessarily be able to see on the track. We have it at Talladega. We've gotten very used to it. And we've gotten very used to talking back and forth on what we call the biscuit, a little box which has us be able to communicate with whoever's running the screens. Usually his name is Eric. The difference is that is a solo company all by itself. They have connections to the Motor Racing Network, but they're not affiliated with the Motor Racing Network. The screens are not only affiliated with the IndyCar Racing Network, they are run by the IndyCar Racing Network. So when I would do what we do at Talladega, which is put the IndyCar Racing Network on the PA speakers whenever they were on, and I would fill in during the commercials, I got an absolutely perfect countdown. Versus the MRN guys, which are, mics are hot. Oh, by the way, there's a 30-second promo, which they neglected to tell us about, and therefore you got 30 seconds of dead air over the PA.
Where have we heard perfect countdowns before? I don't know. Where. Wonder who.
I can tell you who does perfect countdowns for me, and that's that guy right there and the producer over there. They set me up perfectly.
I'll say this. Dear Thing 1 and Thing 2 that's in the tower with us now. I'm not going to call by names. I'm going to say Thing 1 and Thing 2.
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Well, when Thing 1 doesn't even eat those delicious pork chops, he'd rather have a Jersey Mike sub. When I can get that one to within less than 1 second of dead air, I figured out what I'm doing. Pretty sure that one over there can get it as tight as that too.
He did.
So
He absolutely did.
yeah,
And when we can take this to Darlington and take it to Richmond and have the regular PA announcer at Richmond go, wow, you guys are good at this. And then take it to Homestead, Miami.
and have the president of MRN say, "Wow,
He was sitting in the booth watching
Yeah.
us.
yeah."
And his eyes popped wide open and said, wow, you guys do it well.
And then Stacy Fine, God love you, honey. When she looks and she smirks when he hears that, you know,
I mean, to the point where the guy that Homestead Miami paid $1,500 in a talent fee on top of his travel, rent-a-car, and home and hotel expenses.
Overpaid.
A little bit. To the point where he saw what we were doing. He came up, he would help us open up everything, and then he would go down and do his trackside stuff, and we never saw him again for the rest of that day.
nope,
Just saying.
we didn't.
Had a fantastic time out of Barber Motorsports Park. Last week you were at Charlotte.
Kids, when I say this, and there's a video that I put onto the main YouTube page where you can see it. I pulled it up through streaming TV last night, watched it on TV, and oh my Lord. 4 wide is the nutsiest, craziest thing I've ever seen in my 38 years of existence.
Oh, so you were like Michael Keaton in Batman. Let's get
Now,
nuts.
for those of us who have no clue, what the heck is 4 wide? What are you talking about?
4 wide nationals were drag racing traditional. You have only 2 going at one time. This time you have 4.
Yep. 3 Christmas lights, 4 cars.
2 lights.
Is it 2 lights? I thought it was
2.
3. I thought they had 3. Okay.
2 lights. They got the bulbs labeled across the top, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when each respective lane knows when each driver is staged in the bulbs and does a timeout. I say this seriously. When I tell you, when 4 top fuel cars fire off at one time and my sinus cavity shook. I mean that seriously. This is, I'm going to do a rated G version of the phrase that I had. Lee Army, Full Metal Jacket, finds the donut in the foot box.
Yeah.
First phrase, holy Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many people there for Saturday. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. More proof, by the way, that the NHRA continues
So
to come up
many
in
there.
popularity.
All right. Had the chance, and I did some scouting there to where I could have a good view. Was able to get to the top of the tower. Had a magnificent viewpoint of that racetrack.
Okay.
Straight down, straight shot. You couldn't have asked for any better. The people at ZMAX Dragway were insanely hospitable, great staff, no problems out of nobody, nowhere. But 2 things on this too as well. Had the opportunity to have a one-on-one with John Force and Brittany Force. Fantastic conversation, and thank you again to Aaron England, buddy of mine, that helped arrange that. Appreciate him a ton.
And reportedly, Brittany is thinking about?
Brittany, he introduced me to Brittany, saying what we done. She's like, oh, okay, you guys out of Alabama? Yes, yep. Wanted to say yes, ma'am. I was like, yeah, we are. She's like, well, hey, when time allows, hey, get a hold of him. We'll come on there. I was like, you ain't got to tell me twice, darling.
We're in.
But that was Mark, I seen what you just said. That was a double nitro baptism. But really hated that our buddy Lex June, that's been on the show before, and he's going to come back on in the very near future. Hated that he missed the show by 1 spot and by just a little bit of time, but that was absolutely nuts.
Yep. We're looking forward to
Nuts.
And then last week, apparently, CRN Storytime didn't have enough time to take part in it. So let's talk a little Talladega, shall we?
That was a long weekend.
It was. We had the opportunity for the first time ever of staying on the grounds. We think Matt's your dad?
Dad's camper. Yep, Dad.
For allowing us to use the camper. We were in a nice area. I mean, it wasn't like we were in the infield and we were bombarded with nothing but partying all night. We were outside.
Which wouldn't necessarily been a bad thing.
Not necessarily, but, still needed some sleep.
Well, except when it rained Friday night and all heck broke loose, and with
That's true.
I stayed awake a while.
But we had a good time. The people around us were, for the most part, good. Partying until 3 o'clock in the morning is one thing, but hey, it's Talladega. It's the way it goes.
Or until one of us goes to get a shower.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Yeah,
that'll be our wrap up of the whole situation. But overall, it was a good weekend. It was kind of eye opening to be there all weekend long. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. We enjoyed it. Had a great time. The hospitality was fantastic. Other than that weather that you were talking about from Friday night into Saturday. The weather was fantastic. We couldn't have really asked for much better. Maybe a little warmer.
It got a little cool Saturday night, but
got a little cool Saturday morning when we were doing the show.
I liked it Saturday night. It was perfect sleeping temperature.
Yeah,
if you had a blanket.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it did.
Without a blanket, it was a little chilly.
It was a bit chilly, and it was a bit, like I said, it was a bit chilly doing the show that Saturday morning too, because I was nowhere near prepared clothing-wise for that.
Well, I looked at the weather forecast. I said, it's going to be a little chilly.
I did not prepare ahead of time. And
that wind almost cut me in half anyway. So.
It did, yeah. But that was a lot of fun. And then we'll wrap it up with this. Matt's tale of
all right,
going to the showers.
Put this disclaimer out there first. All right. It was about 9:45 or so. I was like, hey, I'm going to run and get a shower real quick because the accommodations in the camper, the shower wasn't very big.
No, this is Friday night.
Friday night. All right. Go doing normal procedures, taking a shower, get in, get out, get going.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, in the far in shower stall.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second. 1 second. These are
7 stalls. Okay.
These are on the grounds shower bathroom
yes
buildings.
Yes.
that
Concrete.
Talladega have built
Yeah.
for the campers.
Campgrounds,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Shower houses and bathhouses.
Absolutely.
Let's just say there was some, let's just call it relations apparently going on because of the sounds. It was dead obvious.
We'll call it extracurricular activity.
Extracurricular activities. There you go. Woo! I jumped in the first shower stall. I think it was probably about shower stall 4. You hear this older gentleman's voice. Get it, son. Lathering up with the finishing the shower got a little bit faster.
Mm-hmm. Speeding up a little.
All right.
I could see that. I'd want to be in and out as fast as I could possibly be at this
Turn
point.
the shower water off. Getting dressed. And then apparently when the extracurricular activities ended, I'm asked pleading for forgiveness from my Auburn brethren and my Auburn family.
Well,
Lord, I'm asking
there's
for
no need
forgiveness.
for
Here's the
forgiveness because you heard what?
I heard
Yeah,
this.
this is a quote. This isn't
Yes.
you
This is a quote.
necessarily rooting. This is a quote.
Because I'm actually having to say these words. Roll Tide, baby. I'm dead.
So
That's
needless
it.
to say, the 3 of us are all up in the PA Tower for the Saturday and Sunday races. And anytime we had something go, we'll just call it sideways up there.
Yeah.
James referred to one of those situations earlier on in the chat session on CRN Live on YouTube where a mistake was made, not by me. And we would just look at each other and one of us would say,
Roll Tide, baby.
That was the way it goes.
And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, show's coming to an end.
CRN story time. Roll Tide, baby. Thank you so much for checking us out. Or in some cases, maybe you're wondering why you checked us out.
Guess what? I'm so elated. I don't have to go anywhere for 2 weeks.
Yeah, we got
Yes.
a little time off. I got to do some yard work. Hope you all have a great week. Thank you very much for checking us out. Hopefully you'll join us again next week. Hopefully you don't think less of us because of what we just talked about.
And if you do, Roll Tide,
That's
baby.
right. Exactly. Hope y'all have a great time. Enjoy the racing this weekend. We'll talk about it all. And, of course, the news of the week as well. Coming up on the show next weekend. Myself, Matt, producer John. You're not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. He's okay, yeah. Hey, we're all supposed to be back next week.
Yep.
Unless something happens and we don't expect it to, but we're not. Y'all have a great week. We'll talk to you again then. Be safe. Be careful. And thank you all for checking us out right here on the Championship Racing Network.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
WDNG 1450 AM
and W236.